Welcome from all of us at He is Risen Ministries. Your support by subscribing and giving a thumbs up helps us keep creating videos that inspire and equip those seeking a deeper walk with the Lord. Today we're going to step into one of the most personal and surprising conversations recorded in the Gospels. It's the moment when Jesus meets a Samaritan woman at a well. The story is found in John 4:4-26. On the surface, it seems like a simple conversation about water. But when we slow down and really listen, we discover that Jesus is revealing something revolutionary. He is revealing who He is, who we are, and how worship itself is about to change. Picture the scene. Jesus is traveling from Judea to Galilee. The most direct route takes him through Samaria. Most Jewish travelers avoided that region completely. They would actually take a longer route around it. That's because Jews and Samaritans had deep hostility toward one another. Their conflict went back hundreds of years. The Samaritans were descended from Israelites who had intermarried with foreign nations after the Assyrian conquest. Because of that, many Jews viewed them as religiously corrupted. The Samaritans accepted the first 5 books of Moses, but rejected much of the rest of Jewish tradition. They also worshipped on Mount Gerizim rather than in Jerusalem. To many Jews of the time, Samaritans were outsiders. Some even viewed them as enemies. Yet John 4:4 says something very interesting. But he needed to go through Samaria, not just geographically, spiritually. Jesus had a divine appointment waiting there. The journey brings him to a town called Sychar. Nearby is a famous well that had been associated with Jacob for centuries. Wells were important meeting places in the ancient world. Travelers stopped there for water. People gathered there throughout the day. But notice the timing. The gospel tells us it was about the 6th hour. That's around noon, the heat of the day. Normally women drew water early in the morning or in the evening when it was cooler, yet one woman arrives at noon alone. That detail matters. She is likely avoiding people, perhaps because of her reputation, perhaps because of her past. Whatever the reason, she expects to come to the well quietly, fill her jar, and leave unnoticed. Instead, she finds someone sitting there. Jesus. The disciples have gone into town to buy food, leaving him alone, and then something shocking happens. Jesus speaks to her. John 4:7 says, "Give me a drink." That might not sound unusual to us today, but in that culture it was extraordinary. First, Jewish men normally did not initiate conversations with women in public. Second, Jews did not associate with Samaritans. Third, sharing drinking vessels between Jews and Samaritans was often avoided due to ritual concerns. So the woman is stunned. John 4:9 records her reaction. "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman?" You can almost hear the surprise in her voice. "Why are you talking to me? Why are you asking me for anything? Why would a Jewish rabbi even acknowledge me?" But Jesus is already moving the conversation deeper. He answers in John 4:10, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." Now the woman is curious. She looks at the well. It is deep. Jesus has no bucket, so she says, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water?" She is thinking physically. Jesus is speaking spiritually. Living water in the ancient world could mean flowing water like a spring or stream. But Jesus is using the phrase in a much deeper sense. He is talking about life itself. He is talking about the kind of life that satisfies the deepest thirst of the soul. He continues in John 4:13-14, "Whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst." Think about that. Every one of us understands physical thirst. If you've ever worked outside on a hot summer day, you know that feeling. Your mouth dries out, your body craves water. But Jesus is describing another kind of thirst, a thirst for meaning, a thirst for forgiveness, a thirst for belonging, a thirst for hope. People try to satisfy that thirst in all kinds of ways. Some chase success, some chase money, some chase relationships, some chase distractions. But eventually the same thing happens. The cup empties and the thirst returns. Jesus says the water he gives is different. It becomes a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman is intrigued. She says, "Sir, give me this water." At this moment, the conversation takes an unexpected turn. Jesus says something that reaches right into her personal life. "Go, call your husband and come here." She replies, "I have no husband." Jesus gently reveals that he already knows her story. "You have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband." Imagine the feeling in that moment. This stranger knows things no stranger should know, yet he does not condemn her. He simply tells the truth. And in doing so, he reveals something else. He sees her, he understands her. The woman recognizes that something unusual is happening. She says, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet." Now she shifts the conversation to a long-standing religious debate. John 4:20. "Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship." This was the great divide between Jews and Samaritans. Where is the true place of worship, Mount Gerizim or the temple in Jerusalem? But Jesus' answer is astonishing, because he says the question itself is about to become irrelevant. He replies in John 4:21-23, "The hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father." Think about that statement. For over 1,000 years, the temple had been the center of Jewish worship, sacrifices, festivals, priests, pilgrimages, all centered around Jerusalem. Yet Jesus is saying a time is coming when worship will no longer revolve around that physical place. Instead, he says something even more remarkable. "The hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth." This moment connects directly to something Jesus would later explain to his disciples. Years later, while sitting on the Mount of Olives overlooking Jerusalem, Jesus gave a prophecy about the coming destruction of the temple. That teaching is recorded in Matthew 24, often called the Olivet Discourse. In Matthew 24:2, Jesus said, "Do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another." He was speaking about the temple itself. At the time, it would have seemed impossible. The temple was massive. Some of its stones weighed many tons. Yet within a generation, in the year 70 AD, the Roman army would destroy Jerusalem and the temple completely. When that happened, the entire sacrificial system came to an end. There was no altar, no sacrifices, no priestly rituals in the temple. So think back to Jesus' conversation with the Samaritan woman. He was already preparing people for that coming reality. The location of worship was about to change forever, not Mount Gerizim, not Jerusalem. Instead, worship would center on the Messiah himself. Jesus says in John 4:24, "God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." In other words, worship is not about geography, it is about relationship, it is about truth, it is about the heart. Think about a modern analogy. Imagine if someone believed they could only talk to their family when standing inside a specific building. It would sound strange, wouldn't it? But in ancient religion, people often believed that certain locations were the only places where God could truly be approached. Jesus removes that barrier. Through him, access to God becomes personal and direct. You can pray in a field. You can pray in your living room. You can pray while driving down the road. The presence of God is not confined to a building. The woman responds with one more statement. She says in John 4:25, "I know that Messiah is coming." She is expressing a hope shared by many people of that time. Someday the Messiah will come and explain everything. And then Jesus speaks one of the clearest declarations of his identity found in the Gospels. John 4:26, "I who speak to you am he." Imagine hearing those words. This ordinary-looking traveler is the Messiah. At that very moment, the disciples return from town. They are surprised to see Jesus talking with a woman. The text says they marveled that he talked with a woman, yet none of them asked why. They were still learning, still processing, still discovering that Jesus was constantly breaking cultural expectations in order to reach people. The woman leaves her water jar and runs back into town. That small detail is beautiful. The reason she came to the well was water. But after meeting Jesus, that purpose no longer mattered. She had something far more important to share. She tells the people in her town, "Come see a man who told me all things that I ever did. Could this be the Christ?" And many Samaritans come out to see him. This moment becomes one of the first times in the Gospels where an entire community begins to believe in Jesus. Think about the irony. The disciples expected rejection in Samaria. Instead, they witnessed a harvest. Jesus even tells them, "Lift up your eyes and look at the fields, for they are already white for harvest." In everyday language, he is saying something like this: look around, people are ready, people are searching, people are thirsty for truth, and sometimes the people we least expect are the ones most ready to listen. That message still speaks to us today. Many people assume faith is only for certain kinds of people, people with perfect lives, people with spotless pasts, people who have everything together. But the Samaritan woman reminds us that Jesus meets people exactly where they are, at a well, in the middle of a normal day, in the middle of a messy life. He speaks gently, he reveals truth, and he offers living water. Think about how this might look in our modern lives. You might be standing in line at a grocery store, you might be sitting in a waiting room, you might be talking with a neighbor over the fence. Simple conversations can become moments where truth and grace enter someone's life, just like that day at the well. Another powerful lesson from this story is how Jesus crosses boundaries, ethnic boundaries, social boundaries, cultural boundaries, religious boundaries. In a world that often divides people into categories, Jesus consistently moved toward those who felt excluded, and he still does. Maybe you have felt like that woman at the well, avoiding people, carrying regrets, wondering if your past has disqualified you from God's love. The message of this story is clear. It has not. Jesus knew everything about her life, and he still offered living water, not condemnation, not rejection, but restoration. There is another important connection to the prophecy about the temple. When the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, it confirmed something Jesus had been teaching all along. The old covenant system of sacrifices was passing away. The true temple would be Christ himself. Later, the New Testament would explain that believers themselves become part of God's living temple. God's presence is not limited to a building. It dwells within his people. That is why the words spirit and truth are so important. Spirit speaks of the inner life. Truth speaks of the reality revealed through Christ. Together they describe authentic worship, not empty rituals, not religious performance, but genuine relationship with God. When we read this story today, it invites us to ask a simple question. What kind of water are we drinking from? Are we constantly chasing things that leave us thirsty again? Or are we turning to the living water Christ offers? Because his promise still stands. The water he gives becomes a spring within us, a source of life that does not run dry. Before we close today, take a moment to reflect. Think about the ordinary places in your life, your workplace, your neighborhood, your daily routines. Any one of those places could become a well where someone encounters truth. Sometimes all it takes is a simple conversation, a word of encouragement, a willingness to listen. The Samaritan woman didn't become a trained teacher overnight. She simply told people what she had experienced. Come see. That invitation is powerful, and it is something every believer can share. So as you move through your day today, remember this story. Remember that Jesus meets people where they are. Remember that living water is still flowing. And remember that worship is not limited to a place. It is a life lived in spirit and truth. Thank you for spending this time with us, and thank you for being part of this growing community that is seeking to understand the Scriptures more deeply. Got a question you'd like us to explore in a future video? Drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. For now, rest in the knowledge that the one who loved you first has already prepared a place for you in his eternal family, and may his voice ring clearly and powerfully this very day.